The world just witnessed a very historical moment when talks regarding a mineral deal fell apart between the Trump administration and President Zelensky of Ukraine. But the reason this is even an issue can be laid directly at the feet of the Obama administration, the Clintons, and the Clinton Foundation. Rosie the Riveter here, dropping more truth bombs to destroy fake news and propaganda. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to get new videos when they are uploaded. Now, let's get into today's riveting topic. To understand what we are watching today, we have to take a very quick look at some key points in Russia's history in the 20th century, starting with the communist overthrow of the government. At the turn of the century, Tsar Nicholas II assumed power, yet there were issues from the start. By World War I, Marxist Vladimir Lenin led the Bolsheviks, the Russian Socialist Democratic Party, in a revolution in 1917. After overthrowing the government, the Bolsheviks withdrew from the world conflict and imprisoned and then brutally massacred Nicholas II and his entire family. After the Russian Civil War in 1922, Lenin set out to turn Russia into a communist utopia. At this time, several republics, including Russia and Ukraine, united to form what we called the Soviet Union. Following Lenin's death 2 years later, Joseph Stalin continued their objective of Marxism-Leninism. It's a term Stalin coined himself. Stalin originally supported Adolf Hitler's dictatorial actions, but quickly turned when Hitler began invading territories within the Soviet Union. Despite being political foes, Russia joined the Allies in 1943 at the Tehran Conference. The three countries were able to unite under the common cause of defeating Hitler, but the camaraderie ended pretty much the moment the war did. Occupation of Germany was split, with the Western Allies of the United States, England, and France controlling the western half, while the Communist Soviet Union controlled the eastern half of Germany. The capital of Berlin was located some 100+ miles in the Soviet Union territory and was also split between the Allies and the Soviet Union, who eventually built a wall around Western Berlin to prevent East Germany citizens from defecting to the West. A wall my father-in-law watched being built when he was stationed in Berlin in his early 20s. As a member of the U.S. Air Force, he gathered and translated Russian communications, information that directly ended up on the president's desk in Washington, D.C. This Cold War continued until Ronald Reagan got the ball rolling by famously and boldly demanding,
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
It was the trigger Germans needed to demand change. Once the wall fell and the Cold War officially ended in 1991, the entities that composed the Soviet Union separated, while Germany was once again united. Beginning in the Bush administration, but primarily the Clinton administration, handed out advice and consultations to Russia, which did not have the result they had hoped for. Following Putin's remarks to the World Economic Forum in January of 2009, Dell Technologies CEO Michael Dell offered his help to Putin and Russia. To everyone's shock, it was an offer not well received. As reported by CNN, Russia has been allergic to offers of aid from the West ever since hundreds of overpaid consultants arrived in Moscow after the collapse of communism in 1991 and proceeded to hand out an array of advice that proved, at times, useless or dangerous. Putin's actual response was, "We don't need your help. We're not invalids. We don't have limited mental capacity." Translation: deep state elitists invited themselves into Russia's affairs to promote their own agendas, utterly insulting the Russians and handicapping relations. Just a week into President Barack Obama's presidency, Putin rejected America's help and charity as it was not beneficial to Russia. In fact, he was quite critical of the United States' part in the global crisis that was occurring at the time and wanted no part of it. Regardless, Obama quickly sent his new Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, the wife of the man who botched relations in the 90s, to smooth things over and initiate a reset with Russia. This is also the woman who said in her 2008 presidential run regarding Putin,
this is the president that looked in the soul of Putin. And I could have told him he was a KGB agent. By definition, he doesn't have a soul. I mean, this is a waste of time, right?
She actually presented the Russian foreign minister with a red plastic reset button, which they mislabeled with the wrong Russian word. Instead of saying reset, it said overcharged. A complete embarrassment for America. Despite the hiccups, Obama and Hillary pushed forward, encouraging trade with Russia. In a June of 2012 Wall Street op-ed, Hillary praised Russia for entering the World Trade Organization, even though the world questioned their economic business practices, which many believed were totally corrupt. Hillary claimed, by making Moscow a normal trading partner, Congress would create American jobs and advance human rights. So what was Secretary Clinton thinking in 2012, pushing for trade with Russia? According to lawyer and National Review columnist Andrew McCarthy, as we've seen, most of the time, she was thinking about the Clinton Foundation and money. Putin's regime dangled billions of dollars to invest in Skolkovo companies. Secretary Clinton immediately went to work, attracting both corporate contributors and businesses deemed worthy of Russian investment. Hillary was the leading advocate of developing Skolkovo, which is Moscow's equivalent to Silicon Valley. And who was Hillary courting to invest into this new entity? In 2010, Cisco pledged a cool $1 billion to Skolkovo, and Google and Intel also jumped on board. All three happened to be major Clinton Foundation supporters as well, as we will see, a significant factor of dozens of companies who became involved with Skolkovo. Many of the key figures in the Skolkovo process, on both the Russian and U.S. sides, had major financial ties to the Clintons. In McCarthy's 2019 book, Ball of Collusion, he explored Hillary's support of trading with Russia despite the highly suspect practices of Russia and their technology advancements, resulting in the United States giving the store away and allowing Russia to advance their military. The investigative journalist Peter Schweitzer has done yeoman's work exposing the grimy interplay between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department. By 2012, the last year of Secretary Clinton's tenure, 60% of the key partners identified for the Skolkovo venture, 17 out of 28, had made financial commitments to the Clinton Foundation totaling tens of millions of dollars, or sponsored speeches by Bill Clinton. Russians tied to Skolkovo also gave to the Clinton Foundation, including Viktor Vekselberg, a billionaire confidant of Putin's, who was chosen to run the Skolkovo Foundation. You can find out more regarding Skolkovo and the Clinton Foundation in the document From Russia with Money, Hillary Clinton, the Russian Reset, and Cronyism, produced by the Government Accountability Institute. A link is provided in the description box. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Biden publicly had harsh words for Russia, but it was the actions and appeasement that Obama, Hillary, and Biden himself conducted during Obama's administration that directly led to Putin's strength in the region. Democrats enriched themselves politically and personally from such oligarchs and businesses in the region while empowering Vladimir Putin with energy and technology deals that still haunt America today. The American dynasties counted their victories in millions of dollars in donations to the Clinton Foundation, speech fees to Bill Clinton, and lucrative board seats and consulting deals for Hunter Biden. But one of the most dangerous and personally profitable deals brokered by the Obama administration was the sale of the Canadian company Uranium One, which mined uranium around the world. Investors in the deal had funneled $145 million into Secretary Clinton's family foundation. Its approval helped to give Russia a near monopoly on global uranium production. It is no wonder Obama defended Russia in the 2012 election, mocking Mitt Romney for saying Russia was our biggest threat. Obama was the one supplying them.
Al-Qaeda is a threat, because a few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. Not Al-Qaeda, you said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back because
the United States elitists made the monster, personally raking in millions off of selling him tools and weapons, and then demanded we go to war to stop that monster when he actually dared to use those weapons. In all events, the American people were screwed. But the Obama administration had even bigger ambitions. In 2014, Obama sent Victoria Nuland to Ukraine to orchestrate a color revolution, removing a duly elected president who was friendly to Russia and replaced him with a government hostile to Russia. And Putin knew it. I lay all that out in my video on yellow journalism and fake news' hand in promoting wars. I also included Biden proudly admitting orchestrating an actual quid pro quo with Ukraine, which covered up the corruption of Burisma, of which Hunter was a board member. And as an interesting side note, the $1 billion Biden was threatening to withhold from Ukraine was from USAID. Despite all the previous love, the Obama administration and deep state attacked Russia when they made moves in Ukraine. But as the Los Angeles Times points out in a May 2016 op-ed, Russia had a point, and it goes back to the fall of the Soviet Union. Leaders in Moscow claimed the United States had failed to uphold a promise that NATO would not expand into Eastern Europe, a deal made during the 1990 negotiations between the West and the Soviet Union over German unification. In this view, Russia is being forced to forestall NATO's eastward march as a matter of self-defense. The West has vigorously protested that no such deal was ever struck. However, hundreds of memos, meeting minutes, and transcripts from U.S. archives indicate otherwise. In early February 1990, then Secretary of State James Baker suggested that in exchange for cooperation on Germany, U.S. could make ironclad guarantees that NATO would not expand 1 inch eastward. No formal deal was struck, but from all the evidence, the quid pro quo was clear. Gorbachev acceded to Germany's Western alignment, and the U.S. would limit NATO's expansion. Putin knew if NATO continued to expand, they would not stop until they overthrew Russia itself. The Washington Post published Reset to Pause, the story behind Clinton's feud with Putin, right before the 2016 election, explaining, Russian officials began publicly rueing their tacit support for UN-approved military action in Libya after the intervention expanded from a simple civilian protection mission to a sustained bombing campaign that led to the overthrow and assassination of Gaddafi. The Kremlin now believed it had been tricked into allowing the UN resolution to move forward. Putin concluded that the Americans were most interested in pursuing regime change for governments they disliked, first in Baghdad and Tripoli, and later in Damascus. Eventually, he became convinced that it was the Kremlin that the United States most wanted to change. Logically, Clinton, a strong proponent of U.S. military action in Libya and Syria, would be on the side of those seeking new leadership in Moscow, he believed. Suddenly, the Russians were casting skeptical looks at joint programs that had received strong support in both capitals. In my last video, I also gave evidence the Clinton Foundation interfered in Haiti's elections and infiltrated their government as well. You can check that out. Putin and Russia were clearly not playing ball with the deep state, as they saw the writing on the wall of not only the massive corruption taking place, but of the United States and other NATO members breaking their agreement with their overthrow of Ukraine. Obama, Hillary, and the deep state had their hand in a new cookie jar, and they were coming after Russia, with or without their cooperation. However, despite their best efforts, it all fell apart in 2016. A woman scorned, Hillary sought to destroy Russia along with Trump by accusing them of colluding to steal the election. The DOJ spent 2 years investigating Russian collusion, while fake news demonized Russia and Putin, all because of a hoax that was invented, promoted, and paid for by Hillary Clinton herself, along with the DNC. The Wall Street Journal reported in 2015 that during Hillary's time as Secretary of State, the Clinton Foundation agreed not to seek donations from other governments, but cash kept flowing from individuals with connections to them. As you can see from their chart of individuals' donations of over $50,000, the foundation's most lucrative country was Ukraine. After losing in 2016, the Clinton Foundation donations started drying up. Hillary's political position should not have mattered, but since it was all about power, control, favors, and profitability, there was no reason to pay if there was no chance to play. To no surprise, it was finally revealed in 2019 that it was in fact Hillary and her campaign that were actually the ones working with foreign officials in Ukraine to steal the election for her. All they know is projection, folks, and all they practice is corruption. Trump's 2016 victory stalled the deep state's objective against Russia, but it was rekindled once Biden took office in 2021, who once again began pushing for Ukraine to enter NATO. Putin restated NATO coming to neighboring countries was a red line. Biden and NATO crossed it anyway. The Russia-Ukraine war was purposely ignited, funded, and perpetuated by Biden and his military-industrial complex cronies. As we just witnessed, Trump is trying to end the conflict, but deep state comrades keep standing in his way, trying to continue the war and its endless funding. Last September, Victoria Nuland confirmed the West advised Zelensky in 2022 not to accept Russia's peace deal. Are they interfering with Trump's negotiations now too? Susan Rice, who's worked in the Clinton, Obama, and Biden administrations, insisted the recent White House meeting to sign a mineral deal was a setup. It may have been, but not by Trump and Vance. She claimed Zelensky came ready to sign, but Vance attacked him. 2 weeks ago, Zelensky dangled mineral rights to get Trump's attention, but as negotiations moved forward, he was very clear he was not interested in Trump's plan, as he had already refused to sign the deal twice before this. An honest review of the White House meeting reveals Zelensky, in fact, started the argument after 40 minutes of calm, peaceful discussion, pushing back on Vance's comments about choosing diplomacy over war and Biden's failure to do so.
So look, For 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014
2014.
and 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
That's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire, all of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract, yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
Days before the meeting, even The Guardian reported on exactly how Zelensky feels about the United States' financial support. Entitled, he believes Congress's and Biden's approved funds came as a grant rather than a debt that had to be repaid. In addition, he proclaimed any deal was contingent on the U.S. administration providing security guarantees to stop Russia from violating any future ceasefire, something it has so far refused to do. You mean like the security guarantee to Russia that NATO wouldn't expand to its borders? Here's what Zelensky and the left are failing to grasp. The deal itself, especially with Trump's backing, is the security guarantee. The mineral agreement puts American interests directly into Ukraine, causing Russia to rethink any further violations. The agreement pays Americans back while putting a virtual security guard directly on their soil. Zelensky has already claimed over half of the money is missing, but he demands an endless flow of it all while balking at the deal that would allow us to recover those funds? Does that really sound logical to you? Now, Zelensky did propose stepping back if Ukraine is admitted to NATO. Is he honestly that oblivious to reality? Russia is obviously not going to agree to that. So who is really giving Zelensky this advice and why? It almost feels like if anyone planned a setup, it was Zelensky. Remember, this man is an actor and comedian and played a president on TV before his election. In fact, Sean Penn loaned him his Academy Award, an award granted for excellent performances. Is it possible Zelensky was just given lines to deliver at the White House, playing a role the deep state hired him to play? Regardless, like Trump said, we hold all the cards because it's our purse strings he wants open. But if the EU wants to continue to stand with Ukraine and keep the war going, more power to them. They all seem to be literally on the exact same page about it anyway. They are welcome to continue to bleed billions of dollars as well as their citizens' blood if they so choose. We need to be out. Ukraine phone call whistleblower Alexander Vindman, who just happens to have a book coming out, weighed in as well, also blaming Vance for the blow-up. Except the impeachment trial revealed that Vindman's own supervisor, Tim Morrison, said the key witness was so untrustworthy he was excluded from conversations, adding, Vindman has an unfortunate habit of defying the sprawling executive branch's carefully delineated chain of command. Like going around Morrison, his direct supervisor who didn't trust him to make false claims about Trump's phone call. Vindman clarified during his testimony that the president did not bring up the topic rooting out corruption during the phone call, but he included it in his summary in the call anyway. When questioned if his summary was false, Vindman hesitated before admitting, "That's not exactly accurate, but I'm not sure I would describe it as false. It was consistent with U.S. policy." Make no mistake, these deep state players are not defending Zelensky and protecting Ukraine's best interests. They are desperately trying to keep the conflict going to, 1, keep the money flowing, and 2, to cover up everything they have done. Realize, if they have been talking directly to Zelensky or his people, especially advising him against peace deals and pushing NATO membership, they are in violation of the Logan Act and should all go to prison. This is treason, folks, not patriotism. Is this why Vindman's wife had a meltdown when Biden overlooked their family when he was passing out pardons like party favors on his way out the door? Just remember, those screaming the loudest are usually those with the most to lose. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying Putin is an angel, but like in World War II, we have a common enemy, and an alliance to defeat that enemy would be beneficial for the world. Russia and others do not want to be controlled by elitists either. And peace only occurs when we stop the blaming and name-calling and start talking to each other to find compromises. This isn't just about stopping the deep state in America, as they have players all across the globe. This is a worldwide operation, and Trump just gave Ukrainians their Berlin Wall moment. The question is, what will they do with it? I'm Rosie the Riveter, and that's my 2 cents. But what do you think? Leave your comments down below. If you enjoy my content, please consider supporting my work on Patreon. You can find all my videos and my blog Liberating Letters at thefactspaper.com. You can also start your own research on the Facts Paper by exploring the thousands of links to articles I have, including those noted in my videos. Sharing the truth fake news propagandists won't. Investigate and discover the truth for yourself.